Trust doesn't arrive with the handshake. It's not something you simply decide to have, like flipping on a light switch. Trust is the result of time, proof, and action. You see, when people come together, whether in a business, a partnership, or a team, they bring with them a lifetime of experiences, doubts, expectations, and assumptions. Some walk in ready to believe in others. Some walk in guarded, wounded by old betrayals. Either way, trust has to be built. Not with a speech, not with a promise, but with action over time. Every relationship begins with potential, but potential doesn't guarantee performance. That's why the early stages of any team effort are crucial. It's when people are watching, not for perfection, but for consistency. They're listening not just to words, but to tone to follow through to what happens when pressure shows up. Do you keep your word? Do you show up when it's inconvenient? Do you support when things don't go your way? Those moments speak louder than anything on a resume. Those moments are where trust begins to take shape or starts to fall apart. Trust is built like a wall, one brick at a time. Each time you show up on time, you lay a brick. Each time you admit a mistake, instead of covering it, you lay a brick. Each time you give credit instead of taking it, you lay another brick. It's slow work. Sometimes you spend weeks laying those bricks without seeing the wall rise. But that's the process. You're building something invisible before it becomes visible. And one day you look around and the wall is there. Not just for you, but for the entire team. Everyone begins to lean on it, that structure of belief, honesty, and reliability. And just like a wall, trust can be damaged quickly. One moment of selfishness, one lie, one broken commitment, and suddenly a brick is missing. Maybe several. That doesn't mean the whole thing collapses right away, but it weakens. The foundation feels uncertain. The team pauses, people hesitate, they become cautious, and caution is the enemy of speed. Caution is the enemy of synergy. Caution says, I'm not sure you'll be there when I jump. That's why those who lead, whether by title or by attitude, must protect the building of trust as one of their top priorities. It's not just about deadlines, numbers, or outcomes. It's about trust, because if you lose that, everything else begins to wobble. Trust is what gives people the confidence to take initiative without fear. It's what allows one person to speak up and another to listen. It's what makes difficult conversations possible and productive. Now here's something interesting. Trust doesn't only grow through agreement. It often grows more through disagreement, handled well. When a teammate challenges your idea respectfully and you listen instead of reacting, that builds trust. When you disagree but still align with the team decision, that builds trust, because now the team sees you're not just in it when it's easy. You're in it when it's uncomfortable. That depth is what separates surface teams from solid ones. Trust isn't silent. It speaks in small moments, when someone says, I've got your back, and then proves it when they say, don't worry, I'll handle it, and they do. Over time, those small acts start to paint a picture of someone who can be counted on. And once a team starts collecting people who can be counted on, momentum builds. The team begins to breathe as one, move as one, think as one, not because everyone agrees on everything, but because everyone believes in each other's intent. And let's not forget, trust goes both ways. It's not just about you being trustworthy, it's also about you giving trust. That means being willing to delegate, to let go, to give others space to rise. Because when you're always micromanaging, always second guessing, you're not just showing a lack of confidence in others, you're showing a lack of trust. And nothing stifles a team faster than the feeling that they're not trusted to do what they were brought in to do. There's risk in trusting, of course there is. People can let you down, mistakes can happen, but there's far more risk in not trusting. Because a team without trust becomes a group of individuals doing isolated work. No cohesion, no shared heartbeat, no deeper connection, and without that, the dream starts to fracture. The mission starts to feel like a job instead of a calling. Trust is the glue that holds it all together. It's the quiet agreement that says, we may be different, but we're here for the same reason, and I've got your back if you've got mine. Speed in business, in sports, in any meaningful pursuit. It's not just about how fast people move, it's about how fast they move together. You can have the most talented individuals in the world, but if they don't trust each other, they'll spend more time second guessing than executing. Progress slows down, not because people aren't capable, but because they're holding back. Trust is what clears that hesitation. Trust is the oil in the engine that keeps the machine running smooth, fast, and focused. When there's trust, communication flows more freely. People don't filter every word to protect themselves. They don't read between the lines of every message, wondering about hidden agendas. They speak openly, honestly, and quickly. They get to the heart of the matter, not the politics around it. And that kind of communication builds clarity, and clarity, in turn, builds speed. Without trust, people spend half their energy covering themselves, managing optics, or protecting turf. But with trust, that energy gets redirected toward action, toward results, toward solving real problems. Think of a team like a rowing crew. If they're not in sync, if they're not aligned in rhythm and purpose, they can't move fast, no matter how strong they are individually. But when trust is present, something amazing happens. They don't just move faster, they move smarter. They anticipate each other's moves. They cover each other's blind spots. They make fewer mistakes because they're not constantly questioning each other's intent. It's not about being perfect. It's about being aligned. On the other hand, mistrust creates friction. You can feel it in meetings, the tension, the caution. People nod but hold back. They agree publicly, then disagree privately. That kind of dynamic slows everything down. Decisions get delayed, ideas get watered down, risks don't get taken. And innovation stalls, not because there's a lack of brilliance, but because there's a lack of trust. People aren't willing to go all in when they feel like someone's going to pull the rug out from under them. You want a fast, moving team, build a deeply trusting one. Trust is the fuel that powers bold moves. It's what gives someone the courage to say, I don't have the answer, but I'll figure it out. It's what allows another person to say, go for it, I've got your back. That exchange may seem small, but it's the heartbeat of momentum. It's what turns co-workers into comrades, departments into movements, and projects into revolutions. Now, trust doesn't mean everyone always agrees. In fact, the strongest teams are full of disagreements, but they trust each other enough to debate without dividing. They know that challenging ideas is not the same as challenging character, so they speak up, they offer honest feedback, they push for better, And because they trust one another, it doesn't slow them down, it speeds them up. They don't waste time walking on eggshells, they spend time refining the mission. Trust also shortens the learning curve. In a trusting team, mistakes are surfaced quickly because no one's afraid of blame. Feedback is received openly because egos aren't on the line. And because of that, growth happens faster, the team evolves, adapts, improves, but when there's no trust, people hide problems. They spin stories, they pretend things are fine when they're not. That kind of behavior creates a delay between reality and action, and in today's world, that delay can be fatal to progress. There's also a psychological speed that comes with trust. When you trust the people around you, you're not wasting emotional energy wondering who's playing games or who's waiting to see you fail. That energy gets redirected into passion, creativity, and drive. You show up to work energized, not drained, because the environment around you feels like one of support, not suspicion, and that's the kind of atmosphere where breakthroughs happen. Even in leadership, trust accelerates everything. When a leader trusts their team, they delegate more freely. They empower more often. They allow others to own pieces of the mission. And as a result, the whole organization moves faster. The leader doesn't become a bottleneck. The team doesn't become dependent. Everyone steps into their role with ownership and purpose. But in a load, rust environment, leaders micromanage, teams wait for approval, ideas have to pass through too many filters, and that chain of delays kills speed. Momentum thrives where trust lives. It allows teams to pivot quickly when conditions change. It helps people focus on solutions instead of covering tracks. It enables forward motion with less drag, less doubt, and less delay. Without trust, the road is full of speed bumps. With trust, the path becomes smoother, straighter, and stronger. Not because it's easy, but because it's unified. Everybody has dreams. Everybody has that internal flicker, that little fire that says, I want more, I want better, I want different. But the truth is, dreams without discipline are just wishes. They're castles in the air. They sound good, they feel good, but they don't stand. What separates those who achieve their dreams from those who simply talk about them is one word: process. The process is the daily grind. It's not flashy. It doesn't show up on social media in perfect lighting. The process is early mornings when no one is watching, late nights when everyone else has stopped, and hours of work that may not bear fruit for weeks, months, sometimes even years. The dream gets all the applause, but it's the process that builds the foundation underneath it. Without the process, the dream will collapse the first time it gets tested. There's something about the process that humbles you. It strips away entitlement. It reminds you that nothing great comes easy, and anything worth having is worth sweating for. It doesn't reward shortcuts. It exposes them, because when you skip the process, you skip the growth. And when the pressure hits, and it always does, you won't have the strength to stand. You may have talent. You may have charm, but without process, you won't have staying power. Process doesn't always feel exciting, but it always builds something. It's in the repetition that skills are sharpened. It's in the structure that creativity finds boundaries and strength. It's in doing the same things well, day after day, that mastery is developed. Winners embrace the process because they understand the long game. Wishers avoid the process because they chase the feeling of success, not the reality of what it takes. If you talk to high performers in any field, athletes, entrepreneurs, artists, they'll tell you the same thing. The results are nice, but the process is what changed them. It's where they became disciplined. It's where they learned how to push through resistance. It's where they discovered their own limits and found out how to go beyond them. The process isn't just about building the dream. It's about building the person who can handle the dream. That's why some people get what they want and still lose it. They were so focused on getting there, they never built the strength to stay there. They wanted the reward, not the refinement, but the process never wastes anything. It takes every effort, every setback, every moment of frustration, and it folds it into your development. It may not feel like progress at the time, but it always adds up. The scoreboard may not move right away, but you are. The process teaches you patience, and patience is not passive. It's the ability to keep moving without the need for constant reward. It's the decision to keep showing up even when the results aren't obvious. That's where maturity is built. That's where your commitment is tested, because it's easy to show up when the excitement is high, when the mood is right. But process calls you to show up regardless of mood. It trains your habits to lead instead of your emotions. The process is where resilience is born. Every time you fall and get back up, you become a little stronger. Every time you fail forward, you build grit. You stop seeing obstacles as dead ends and start seeing them as checkpoints. That shift in mindset is everything. It's what makes a winner, not the absence of failure, but the refusal to stop. The process gives you that kind of perspective. It widens your lens, deepens your resolve, and strengthens your spirit. And process doesn't just help you grow as an individual, it prepares you to work with others. Because once you understand what it takes to build something meaningful, you respect the work others are doing too. You become a better teammate, a better collaborator. You don't waste time judging someone else's pace because you know how hard the journey is. You're too focused on walking your own path with integrity and diligence. In a world addicted to instant gratification, the process is a rare discipline. It's not about the quick win, it's about sustained progress. It's about stacking small victories day after day until one day you look back and realize how far you've come. And here's the beautiful irony. When you truly fall in love with the process, the results tend to take care of themselves. Not because you chased them desperately, but because you became the kind of person who naturally attracts them through effort, consistency, and character. Success has a way of making everything look good. When the winds are rolling in, when the team is hitting its targets, when the business is booming or the scoreboard is lighting up, trust feels easy. Everyone's smiling, everyone's motivated. There's energy in the room, but real trust, the kind that matters, the kind that lasts, doesn't reveal itself when everything's going right. It shows up when things go wrong, because setbacks don't just challenge your skills or your strategy. They challenge your trust in each other and in the process that brought you together. When failure enters the room, it brings questions with it. Questions like, who's responsible? Who dropped the ball? Can we recover from this? Do we still believe in each other? In those moments, teams either fall apart or pull together. And what determines the outcome isn't just how talented they are. It's how much they trust. Setbacks expose the cracks in trust that success often covers up. You can fake unity when everything's going well. But under pressure, your foundation gets tested. This is where leadership, formal or informal, plays a crucial role. Not by demanding blind optimism, but by reinforcing belief. The leader says, yes, we hit a wall, yes, it hurts, but we've built something stronger than this moment. We've built each other. That belief doesn't come from a pep talk. It comes from a history of showing up, a rhythm of accountability, and the quiet consistency that builds trust over time. In hard times, people don't look for perfection. They look for someone they can count on, someone who tells the truth without panic, someone who still believes in the mission even when the road gets dark. Setbacks will test not just how much you trust others, but how much they trust you. When things fall apart, will you stay calm? Will you point fingers or offer solutions? Will you take ownership or shift blame? These questions aren't answered with words. They're answered with behavior. And behavior under pressure reveals character. It reveals the real culture of the team, not the one printed on the wall, but the one lived out in meetings, in late nights, and in difficult decisions. The truth is, trust has to be built in advance. You don't build trust during the storm. You build it before. In the little things, in the consistency, in the follow-through, so when the storm comes, and it always comes, you've got something to lean on. You've got shared history. You've got scars that prove you've made it through tough seasons before. That's what makes the next storm survivable, not because you've seen it all, but because you know how to hold on to each other through it. Sometimes setbacks don't just test the team, they test the individual, and in those moments, it's easy to isolate, to pull back, to question your role or your value. But isolation rarely brings clarity. What it does is erode connection. And the more disconnected you become, the easier it is to start believing the wrong story, that you don't belong, that you're the problem, or worse, that no one else cares. But when a team has built trust, it steps into those gaps. It doesn't let someone drift away unnoticed. It checks in. It reminds each person that they matter, not just for what they do, but for who they are. Setbacks are also where alignment is either strengthened or fractured. If your goals are shared, if your values are real, then the hard times will refine your unity. But if trust was surface level, based on convenience or performance, then the adversity will split you. It will reveal hidden agendas, it will magnify egos, and before long, what was once a team becomes a group of individuals all trying to survive instead of thrive. That's why trust must be deeper than the moment. It has to be rooted in something more enduring. Recovery from setbacks depends on trust, because trust enables speed, clarity, and cooperation. When trust is high, feedback is honest, no sugarcoating, no politics, just facts and solutions. And when the team trusts the process, they don't abandon the plan after one setback. They adjust, refine, and keep going. They see the setback not as a signal to quit, but as an opportunity to learn. That mindset keeps the engine moving forward, even when the terrain gets rough. In some cases, setbacks even strengthen trust more than success ever could. Because when you've walked through fire with someone, when you've been down, frustrated, even embarrassed, and they stayed with you, you never forget that. You build a bond that success alone can't produce. You know who stood by you when the applause stopped. And those are the people you'll go to battle with again and again. That's a trust forged not in theory, but in reality. Every team wants to win. That's a given. But the best teams understand that losing is part of the journey too. not because they enjoy it, but because they respect what it reveals. It strips away illusions, it tests belief, and it gives every person a choice: run or rally. Those who rally, who keep trusting each other and the mission even when the scoreboard says otherwise, are the ones who build something that lasts beyond a single project, a single quarter, or a single season. There's a kind of strength that doesn't shout. It doesn't demand the spotlight or need applause. It moves quietly, steadily, and powerfully beneath the surface. That strength is consistency. And when it comes to trust, whether in a team, a leader, a mission, or a process, consistency is the foundation it's built on. Because trust, real trust, isn't something you earn with a grand gesture. It's something you cultivate by showing up the same way, day in and day out. People don't trust you because you did something impressive once. They trust you because you keep doing the right thing when it's hard, when no one's watching, when there's no immediate reward. Consistency proves character. It signals that you're not just driven by mood or convenience, but by principle. That matters deeply in any environment where people rely on each other to make decisions, take action, and stay aligned through pressure. It tells people you can count on me, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's not. A consistent teammate is more valuable than a brilliant one who's unpredictable. Why? Because people want to know what version of you is going to show up. They want to know if they can count on your word, your work ethic, your tone, your presence. The flashiest contributor might get headlines, but it's the consistent one who builds the culture. They steady the ship. They set the pace, and over time they become a quiet anchor in the chaos that shows up in every endeavor sooner or later. That consistency doesn't just benefit others, it shapes who you are. Each time you do what you said you'd do, even when you don't feel like it, you reinforce your own integrity. Each time you align your actions with your values, you build internal confidence. And confidence isn't about ego. It's about trust in yourself. It's the knowledge that you can handle the next challenge, not because it will be easy, but because you've trained your character to rise, to show up, and to persist. That confidence becomes contagious. It radiates outward, and others feel it, even if they can't articulate it. Now, consistency doesn't mean perfection. You'll make mistakes, you'll have off days, you'll miss the mark sometimes. That's not a failure of consistency, it's an opportunity for it, because consistency is also about how you respond. Do you take responsibility? Do you communicate clearly? Do you get back on track quickly? In fact, the most trust-building moments often come after a mistake, when someone owns it completely and follows through on the repair. That's when people really learn who you are, not when everything's smooth, but when you hit turbulence and choose to handle it with maturity and transparency. In a team setting, when consistency is a shared value, it becomes a culture. Meetings start on time. Deadlines are respected. Feedback is honest but not harsh. Support is offered without being asked. And over time, that kind of atmosphere changes what people believe is possible. Because when people know they're not alone, when they know they're working with others who are just as committed, just as reliable, they begin to stretch. They begin to risk more. They begin to aim higher, not out of pressure, but out of trust. Because consistency builds not just reliability, but belief. That belief compounds. It doesn't happen in a single week. You might not even see it clearly after a month. But keep showing up. Keep doing the work, keep honoring your word, and over time it turns into something powerful. Momentum. Momentum is the byproduct of consistent action over time. It's when the effort begins to multiply, and at that point, trust shifts from being something you build to something that carries you. You stop wondering if people will follow through. You know they will. You stop questioning if the team can handle pressure. You've seen it happen again and again. Leadership, too, becomes easier when consistency is the foundation. People don't need constant motivation when they trust the structure. They don't need to be convinced every day. They lean into the rhythm. They trust the system. They understand what's expected, and they know their leaders are walking the talk. That kind of environment attracts strong people. It keeps them engaged, and it turns the team into something more than the sum of its parts. Consistency also creates clarity. When your actions align with your values on a regular basis, people don't have to guess. They don't have to interpret. They know what you stand for. They know how you operate, and that clarity eliminates confusion, which is one of the most common causes of dysfunction. Confused teams hesitate, clear teams act, and clarity only comes from repetition, repeating your standards, your mission, your behaviors, until they become not just what you say, but who you are. Eventually, what consistency creates is confidence, not just in the moment, but in the future. Because if you've shown that you can be counted on for 1 month, 1 quarter, 1 year, then the people around you begin to believe that you'll be reliable in the next season too. And that belief, it frees them to focus, to create, to challenge themselves. They stop looking over their shoulder and start looking ahead. They stop questioning the foundation and start building on it. They stop wondering if the people around them will rise to the moment and start preparing to rise with them. Conclusion: trust isn't built in a day, and success isn't either. What we've explored here is the invisible architecture that holds strong teams together and propels great achievements forward. It's not luck, it's not just talent, it's not about finding the perfect people or waiting for the right moment. It's about cultivating a deep belief in each other and in the process that moves you, inch by inch, towards something bigger than any one person alone. Trusting the team means understanding that no one wins alone. Even the most gifted need support, encouragement, accountability, and alignment. Trusting the process means accepting that progress doesn't always look like progress. Some seasons will feel slow, some decisions will stretch your patience, and some results will take longer than expected. But if the foundation is solid, if the team is grounded in shared values and built on consistent effort, then the outcomes will come. Setbacks will challenge your unity, but they will also reveal your strength. They'll expose whether your trust was conditional or unwavering. And when the work feels repetitive, when the days feel ordinary, that's when greatness is actually being formed quietly through the power of consistency. Because what you do daily determines what you become eventually. So let this be your reminder. Believe in the people you've chosen to walk with. Hold fast to the system that's been tested and refined. Stay the course even when the road curves. Because in the end, real success is not just reaching the finish line. It's who you become and what you build along the way together, with trust and time as your greatest allies.